Hey there, welcome to the channel. If you're looking for the perfect way to unwind and drift off to sleep, you're in the right place. Tonight, we've got a whole hour of some of the most interesting and emotional Reddit stories from crazy family. Dramas to heartwarming moments to help you relax and escape the day. So get comfortable, let go of your worries, and let these stories carry you into a peaceful sleep. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoy this, and make sure to subscribe for more stories to relax to in the future. Now let's get started and dive into tonight's tales. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let's fall asleep together. Enjoy. Am I the a-hole for keeping the inheritance my grandfather left only to me? Even though my siblings think I should split it 3 ways, I, 28 ma'am, was very close with my grandfather. He helped raise me, especially during my teenage years when my parents were going through a really rough divorce. My siblings, Ben 30M and Sophie 25F, weren't as close to him. They were younger when the divorce happened and stayed mostly with our mum, while I moved in with Grandpa for almost 3 years during the mess. He was the kind of guy who taught me how to fix cars, file taxes, build a fence, and cook a decent steak. Honestly, he was more of a father figure to me than our actual dad. We talked every week even after I moved out and got my own place. He always said, "You're my right-hand man, kid." He passed away unexpectedly last year. It hit me hard. At the funeral, everyone assumed his assets would be divided evenly among the grandkids and his 2 children, my dad and aunt. But when the will was read, it was revealed that he had left his entire savings, around $150,000, solely to... There was a letter with it. In it, he wrote that he loved all his grandkids but was leaving the money to me because I had been there for him, helped take care of him when his health started to fail, and because he believed I'd make something meaningful out of it. As soon as the will details came out, my siblings flipped. Ben said it was unfair and that Grandpa must have been manipulated. Sophie cried and said she felt less loved. My aunt even tried to challenge the will, claiming it was suspicious that everything went to just one grandchild. But the lawyer confirmed everything was legal, signed, dated, and witnessed months before Grandpa died. It wasn't shady. It was just what he wanted. Since then, my siblings have been relentless. They keep saying things like, "Hey, we're family, you should split it. You're not more deserving than us just because you lived with him. He was old. He probably didn't know what he was doing." I've held firm. I told them, I understand their disappointment, but that it was Grandpa's decision, not mine. I didn't ask for the money, I didn't expect it. I didn't even know it was coming. But now that it's here, I feel like the respectful thing to do is to honor his wishes, not go against them. I did offer to help Sophie pay off some of her student loans at about $5,000 as a gesture of goodwill, but she refused, saying it wasn't about the money. It was about being treated equally. Ben said he doesn't want crumbs, and that either I split it evenly or I'm a greedy jerk who doesn't care about family. Now our relationship is completely fractured. We barely speak. Family gatherings are tense. My parents are staying out of it, saying it's between us, but I know they're disappointed too. I've been using the money slowly. Part of it went to paying off my car loan and putting a down payment on a house. The rest I've kept in savings, but now I'm sitting here wondering, should I have just split it from the start? Did I value Grandpa's wishes over the feelings of my siblings? Was I wrong? So am I the a-hole for keeping the inheritance? My grandfather left me, even though my siblings expected me to share it. Am I the a-hole for banning my mother-in-law from the delivery room after she showed up uninvited to my last birth and live-texted my labor to the family? I, 31F, am pregnant with our 2nd child, due in about 6 weeks. With our first baby, I had an absolutely horrible experience thanks to my mother-in-law, Linda, 58F. When I went into labor with our firstborn 2 years ago, my husband, 32ME, and I agreed we wanted the birth to be a private experience, just the 2 of us and medical staff. I was nervous, in pain, and didn't want an audience. We told both sets of parents that we would notify them when the baby was born and that no one should come to the hospital unless we asked. Well, guess who showed up anyway? About 3 hours into labor, I was in the middle of intense contractions when a nurse knocked on the door and said, "Your mother is in the waiting room." I was confused. My mum lives in another state and wasn't due to fly in until the next day. Nope. It was Linda. She had somehow found out I was in labor. We hadn't told her. We think my husband's cousin let it slip in a family group chat and decided she needed to be there for her grandchild's birth. The hospital staff didn't let her into the room at first, but she kept pacing outside, texting my husband, and even called me while I was mid-contraction. Eventually, while my husband was out grabbing a snack and I was alone with a nurse, Linda barged in. I don't know how she got past the front desk. She just showed up in my room holding a camera and wearing a world's best grandma shirt. I was shocked. I was half naked, sweating and crying, and she just said, "Don't worry, sweetie, I've seen it all before." Then she pulled out her phone and started texting updates to the family, stuff like, "She's 7 centimeters now. Baby's heart rate is up." "Looks like it's going to be soon," I told her to get out. I was crying, humiliated and furious, but she just smiled and said, "Don't be silly, I'm family." My husband returned and found me in tears. He was furious with her and finally got hospital staff to escort her out. But the damage was done. I was completely stressed out. My labor stalled, and what should have been the most beautiful moment of my life turned into an anxiety-ridden disaster. Now that we're preparing for baby number 2, I've made it absolutely clear that Linda is not allowed anywhere near the hospital. I don't want her in the waiting room, in the hallway, in the parking lot, nothing. I told my husband she will find out about the birth after the baby is born, and not before. I also told the hospital to put a security note in my file. My husband supports me 100%, though he's a bit sad about it. He said he knows his mum is a lot, but she really does love being a grandma and means well. Well, word got out. Linda found out she's not going to be invited this time, and she's been having a meltdown. She cried to my husband, saying I was punishing her for being excited and that I'm trying to keep her grandchild away from her. She even posted a vague Facebook status about some people forgetting who family really is. Now my husband's extended family is blowing up my phone, telling me I'm being cruel and that no grandmother should be banned from her grandchild's birth. His sister even called me a control freak and said I was ruining the family dynamic. I reminded them all that I'm the one giving birth. This is a medical procedure, not a spectator sport. I should have the right to feel safe, supported and respected. Still, the guilt is creeping in. I don't want to cause permanent damage, but I refuse to go through what I did last time. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for banning my mother-in-law? From the delivery room this time, even though she's heartbroken about it. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take my fiancé's last name and causing her to call off the wedding? Eisen 29 Mem was supposed to get married in a few months to my now ex-fiancée, Claire, 28F. We were together for 4 years, engaged for 1. Things were solid, or so I thought. Claire is a very independent, ambitious woman. She has a great job in tech, owns her own condo, and has always made it clear she values equality and fairness in a relationship, which I respected. We split bills 50-50, made joint decisions, and never fell into traditional gender roles unless it happened naturally. But about 6 months ago, we started talking about the details of the wedding, the guest list, the venue, the vows, and then the name thing. Claire said very confidently, "I'm keeping my last name." I was like, "Cool, totally your choice." Then she followed up with, "And I'd like you to take my name instead." At first I laughed. I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. Claire comes from a long line of women who kept their names or passed them on. Her last name is unique, powerful, and tied to her family's legacy. She said she didn't want to erase that, and since I didn't have strong ties to my last name, which she assumed, she thought it made perfect sense for me to take hers. I was stunned. I told her I respected her reasoning, but I didn't want to change my name. My name is mine. It's tied to my identity, my late grandfather, my culture. I told her I'd be happy with us both keeping our own names or even hyphenating if she wanted that for the kids, but I wasn't comfortable taking her name. Claire was furious. She said I was being a hypocrite, that if she had refused to take my name, I would have been fine with it, but I wasn't willing to do the same in return. She accused me of being secretly sexist and told me that if I truly believed in equality, I'd have no problem doing this for her. I told her equality means we both get a say, and just like I wouldn't force her to take my name, she couldn't force me to take hers. Things spiraled. She brought it up constantly. Her family weighed in, telling me I was clinging to outdated traditions. Her friends started calling me insecure. One even suggested I just do it legally and keep using my name professionally, as if that made it okay. Eventually, Claire gave me an ultimatum. Either you take my name or there's no wedding. I stood my ground. I told her I loved her, but I wouldn't be pressured into doing something I didn't believe in. A week later, she called off the wedding, told me I was too traditional, and said she couldn't marry someone who didn't support her values. Now her side of the friend group has painted me as the villain. They're saying I humiliated her and disrespected her family's legacy. My friends think she was being unreasonable and controlling. Still, I'm left wondering, was this really about a name? Or was it about something deeper? And did I blow up a good thing over something that didn't really matter? So Reddit. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take my fiancé's last name, even though it ended our relationship? Am I the a-hole for kicking my maid of honor out of my wedding after she secretly changed my dress without telling me? Hi, Reddit. I'm still trying to calm down from what happened 3 days ago. I, 27F, got married this past weekend, and while the ceremony was beautiful and we're finally married, there's a giant stain on the whole day. And it's because of my former best friend and maid of honor, Jenna, 28F. Jenna and I have been best friends since college. We've been through everything together. Heartbreaks, jobs, bad haircuts, family drama. I chose her as my maid of honor without hesitation. She's stylish, assertive, and knows how to handle pressure, so I thought she'd be perfect. The trouble started about 6 months ago when I picked my wedding dress. I fell in love with a simple, elegant A-line satin gown with a square neckline and minimal embellishments. It wasn't flashy, but it made me feel beautiful and confident. Jenna, on the other hand, thought it was too plain. She kept suggesting alternatives, dresses with lace, sparkle, dramatic trains, all of which I politely declined. I said, "This is the one. I don't need to look like Cinderella. I want to look like me." I didn't think anything else of it. The dress was paid for, tailored, and waiting at the bridal shop, boxed and ready to go. Flash forward to the wedding day. I'm in the bridal suite with my bridesmaids, getting hair and makeup done. Jenna said she'd go grab the dress from the shop. It was a short drive away, so I didn't have to stress. I thanked her and figured that was one less thing to worry about. She returned with the dress box. We got ready, and I didn't open it until about 30 minutes before the ceremony. I was trying to stay calm and relaxed. But when I opened it, it wasn't my dress. It was similar, same silhouette, but had a sweetheart neckline, lace detail all over, and a sparkly belt. It was flashier. Definitely not the one I chose. I asked Jenna what was going on, and she said, "It's an upgraded version. I had it altered for you. Trust me, you'll thank me later. You looked so basic in the other one." I was stunned. I told her she had no right to change my dress. She just kept insisting that it looked better, that everyone would love it more, and that I was just freaking out from nerves. I felt cornered. My mum and other bridesmaids were as shocked as I was, but by that point, there were only 20 minutes until the ceremony, and I didn't have time to go find the original dress, so I wore the modified one. After the ceremony, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I felt like I'd been robbed of my moment. Every time I looked at the photos or caught my reflection, I saw a dress I didn't choose, a version of myself that Jenna had created. During the reception, I pulled Jenna aside and told her how betrayed I felt, that she crossed a massive line and disrespected me on my wedding day. She brushed it off again, saying, "You're being dramatic." "Everyone thought you looked amazing," I snapped. I told her to leave the reception. She tried to laugh it off, but I was dead serious. She left in tears, and now several of our mutual friends are calling me a bridezilla for throwing a tantrum over a dress. Even my husband said he was surprised I didn't just go with it, that the dress did look great and no one noticed it wasn't the original. But to me, that's not the point. It was my choice, and she took that away from me. So now I'm sitting here, newly married, with a dress I didn't choose, a best friend I no longer trust, and people telling me I overreacted. So Reddit. Am I the a-hole for kicking my maid of honor out of my wedding, for secretly changing my dress? Am I the a-hole for walking out of my own wedding reception after the best man made jokes about my wife's past in his speech? Hey Reddit. Throwaway, because I know some of our friends are on here. I, 33M, got married to my now wife, Lena, 31F, 2 weeks ago. The ceremony was beautiful, intimate, and honestly felt like a dream. Lena looked stunning. Everything went off without a hitch, and I was riding the high of marrying the love of my life. That is, until the reception. Let's talk about my best friend, Jake, 34M, who I made my best man. Jake and I have been friends since high school. We've been through everything together. He's always been the funny guy. Loud, brash, makes jokes that toe the line. Sometimes he's hilarious, other times he doesn't know when to shut up. But I always thought he had enough common sense to handle a best man speech with maturity. Spoiler alert, he didn't. Jake got up during the reception for his speech, and at first it was fine. Some fun stories from our teenage years, jokes, about me being the soft one in our friend group, etc. But then he shifted gears and started talking about Lena. Here's a rough transcript of what he said. I remember it all too clearly. Now Lena. Wow. When my name told me he was dating you, I was shocked. Not because you're gorgeous, so that part made sense. But because, well, I recognized you. I think a few of us here do. Awkward laughter. I remember saying, bro, isn't she the one who used to hang around with that rugby team? More awkward chuckles. But hey, we all have our wild days, right? No judgment, I mean, let's be honest. If anyone knows about not being picky, it's Lena. Full-on laughter from some drunk guests, silence from others. I stared at him, frozen. Lena's smile disappeared. Her mother looked like she was about to faint. My parents were glaring. Jake just kept going, referencing vague things from Lena's college years. Nothing outright explicit, but heavily implying she had a wild or promiscuous past. Lena's past is her business. She has always been open with me. Nothing he said was new to me, but the fact that he decided to air it at our wedding in front of our families, friends, and her conservative relatives was disgusting. When he wrapped up with a "to Lena," and my name, may you always laugh, especially about the past. I didn't even toast. I just stood up and left the table. I went outside, pacing, fuming, trying not to scream. Lena came out 10 minutes later in tears. She said she wanted to leave, so we did. We left our own wedding reception. People were stunned. My mum called later that night, furious. At Jake, but also asking why I didn't try to salvage the night. Jake, of course, texted me saying I was too sensitive and that it was just a joke, and everyone thought it was funny. Not true. Her family was offended. My dad said he would have walked out too. One of Lena's cousins called her the next day to say they couldn't believe I stayed friends with someone who thought that was appropriate. Jake still doesn't get it. He's telling our friend group that I'm being dramatic, and that if Lena is ashamed of her past, maybe that says more about her. I told him we're done. Friendship over. Now I've got friends calling me out for overreacting and ruining the vibe of the wedding, that I should have waited until the next day to deal with it. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for walking out of my own wedding reception and cutting off my best man after the speech he gave? Am I the a-hole for not giving my sister a dime from our grandfather's will after she abandoned him for years? Hey Reddit, I, 34M, recently became the sole inheritor of my grandfather's estate. It's been a whirlwind, and now I'm being painted as selfish by my family, mainly by my sister, Emily, 36F. Let me back up. My grandfather was more like a father to me than my actual dad ever was. He raised us for a good chunk of our childhood after our parents split and our mum fell apart emotionally. Grandpa stepped in, picked us up from school, made our lunches, helped with homework, all of it. He was patient, wise, and honestly the only stable presence in our lives growing up. As adults, our lives diverged. I stayed close to Grandpa, visited every week, helped him with his groceries, drove him to appointments, fixed things around the house. When he got diagnosed with Parkinson's 4 years ago, I became his primary caretaker. At first part-time, then nearly full-time toward the end. Emily? She basically disappeared. At first, it was excuses. I'm swamped at work, or I'm traveling, or I'll come by next weekend. Then it turned into months of no contact. Grandpa would call her and she'd send him straight to voicemail. When I'd bring her up, he'd just sigh and say, "She's busy, I guess." The truth is, she didn't want to deal with him being sick. She told me, "I don't want to remember him like this." Which, okay, I get that it's hard. But I watched him slowly lose his mobility, his independence, and still smile every time I walked through the door. He deserved better than being left behind. Grandpa passed 2 months ago. It broke me. We had his funeral and Emily showed up, in designer sunglasses, late, and left right after the service ended. Then came the will. Turns out Grandpa had quietly updated it a year before he died. He left everything to me. His house, his savings, his car, everything. There was even a letter with it, handwritten, that said, "To my grandson, who stood by me when no one else did. This is not about money. It's about love, time, and loyalty. You were there when I needed you. That matters more than blood." I was stunned. I didn't expect anything. I just wanted to be there for him. Emily? She lost it. She called me the next day and said the will was clearly fake. That Grandpa would never do that to her. She demanded I split everything 50-50 or else she'd contest it in court. I told her the will was notarized, witnessed, and legal. I even showed her the letter. She cried, then screamed, saying I manipulated an old man and took advantage of him when he was vulnerable. Then came the texts from relatives. A few of them, mostly from Emily's side of the family, started guilt-tripping me, saying he was her grandfather too, and family shouldn't be about money. One aunt told me to do the right thing and give Emily half of the inheritance, even if it wasn't in writing. I asked her, where was Emily when Grandpa couldn't walk on his own? When he forgot how to use the microwave? When I had to spoon-feed him and clean up after him and stay up all night when he was confused and scared? No one had an answer to that. Now I'm being painted as greedy. I haven't responded to most of the messages. I told Emily if she wanted to contest the will, she was free to hire a lawyer. But I wasn't giving her anything. Part of me feels guilty. We were close once as kids, and yeah, it's a lot of money. I don't need all of it to survive, but I also feel like I earned it in a way that goes beyond cash. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for not sharing my grandfather's inheritance with my sister, even though he left her nothing? Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister out of my birthday dinner after she announced her pregnancy and stole the spotlight? Hey Reddit, this just happened last weekend and my phone still hasn't stopped buzzing. I, 30F, turned 30 on Saturday, and I planned a special dinner at a nice restaurant with close friends and family. It was meant to be a milestone celebration, not just because of the age, but because I've had a rough couple of years. I lost my job during the pandemic, ended a long-term relationship, and spent a lot of time rebuilding myself. So this birthday was symbolic for me. It was about reclaiming happiness. I made a reservation at a fancy Italian place I've always wanted to try. I paid for everything myself, except drinks. Those were optional add-ons, decorated the table, and made little personalized cards for each guest as a thank you. There were about 18 people, mostly close friends, some cousins, my parents, and my younger sister Lily, 27F. Lily has always been intense. She's very me in every way. When I got accepted into college, she cried because no one was paying attention to her. When I got engaged a few years back to my now ex, she showed up to the engagement party wearing a white sequin gown and told people we were basically twins. You get the idea. Anyway, I hadn't seen Lily much lately because we've had a rocky relationship. But I still invited her, hoping we'd turned a corner. The dinner started out great. Everyone was laughing, eating, and I was genuinely enjoying myself. People gave little toasts, told funny stories about our 20s. It was wholesome. Then, during dessert, Lily stands up, clinks her glass with a fork, and says, "Everyone, can I have your attention?" I figured maybe she was going to toast me, which would have been nice. But no, she goes, "I just want to say that I'm so excited to be here tonight celebrating my big sister, and also to let everyone know I'm pregnant." Cue gasps and congratulations. People started clapping. My mom shrieked, and within 30 seconds all eyes were on her. Someone even asked if she knew the gender. Another person started talking about baby names. The entire vibe shifted from my 30th birthday to her surprise baby shower. I just sat there, stunned. After about 5 minutes of her soaking up the attention, I quietly asked her if we could speak outside. She came out smiling and said, "I wanted to tell everyone for weeks. This just felt like the perfect time." I said, "Lily, this is my birthday. You completely took over." She rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic. That life doesn't stop just because you turn 30. I told her she could have waited one more day, or even just told people in a group text after. She said, "Wow, I thought you'd be happy for me." I said I was happy for her, but not at this moment. She accused me of being selfish and jealous, that she didn't get to plan a fancy dinner, and that I was making everything about me on my birthday. At that point, I'd had enough. I told her to leave. She laughed, thought I was bluffing. I walked back in, got my dad, who looked mortified, and told him to please take Lily home because she wasn't welcome to stay. They left, and the energy at the table was weird after that. Some people backed me up. Others, like my aunt, said I overreacted, and that pregnancy announcements are joyful and shouldn't be timed around someone else's ego. Now it's Monday, and Lily has blocked me. My mom says I should apologize for embarrassing her in front of the whole family. My cousin sent me a long message about how sisters should support each other, and how this is what family does. But I can't shake the feeling that she deliberately did this to shift the attention to herself. It was calculated. She brought an ultrasound picture. This wasn't spontaneous. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for kicking my sister out of my birthday? Dinner after she hijacked it with her pregnancy announcement? Am I the a-hole for uninviting my mum from my wedding because she insisted on wearing a white dress that looked like a wedding gown? Hi Reddit. I, 26F, am getting married next weekend to my wonderful fiancé, 28M. We've been planning this wedding for over a year, and I've tried to be as calm, chill, and drama-free as possible, but something happened this week that has me questioning everything. Let's talk about my mum. She's always had a bit of a main character complex. She's loud, flashy, very into appearances. She loves attention and has a habit of making things about herself. Birthdays, graduations, even funerals. No joke, she wore a red dress to my grandmother's funeral because black washes me out. Despite all that, I've tried to keep the peace and include her in my wedding. I let her help with planning, I brought her dress shopping with me, and I even gave her input on the catering menu. Everything was going relatively smoothly until 2 weeks ago when I asked her what she planned to wear. She smiled and said, "Oh, don't worry, I already found the perfect dress. It's stunning. You'll love it." I asked to see it. She was cagey at first, then finally sent me a picture. Read it. It was a white, floor-length mermaid-style gown with a sweetheart neckline and lace overlay. It looked like a slightly less expensive wedding dress. I kid you not, it had a freaking train. I stared at the photo for a minute thinking, this has to be a joke. But she was dead serious. I called her immediately and said, "Mom, you cannot wear that to my wedding." She was offended, said it was off-white, it wasn't elegant, and that it flattered her figure. She said I was being insecure and that no one is going to confuse me for the bride. I said it wasn't about being confused. It was about respect. It's literally the one universally known wedding rule. Don't wear white unless you're the bride. I told her to return it and find something else, any other color. She flat out refused, said she already paid for alterations and that it was too late, and that people need to stop acting like the world revolves around you just because you're wearing a veil. I was shocked. We went back and forth for a few days, and every conversation ended in her accusing me of being controlling or immature. My fiancé said I should just let it go and not let her ruin the day, that no one will be looking at her. Anyway, but I couldn't shake it. I tried a compromise. I offered to buy her a new dress, any dress she wanted, if she'd just agree not to wear that one. She still refused. So, I uninvited her. I told her I loved her, but if she showed up in that dress, I would be humiliated. I couldn't spend my wedding day wondering if people were whispering about how my mom tried to upstage me. I told her that unless she changed her mind, she wasn't welcome at the ceremony or reception. She blew up, full meltdown, said I was a horrible daughter, that I was punishing her for being beautiful, and that I was letting a stupid piece of fabric ruin our relationship. Now my phone is blowing up. My aunt, her sister, says I'm being ridiculous. My dad, divorced from her, said, "This is exactly why I left her. My bridesmaids are split. Some say stand your ground, others say just let her come and ignore it. I feel like no matter what I do, it's going to leave a mark on this wedding. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for uninviting my mom from my wedding because she refused to wear anything but a white dress? Am I the a-hole for refusing to make my fiancé a plate at a family dinner and embarrassing him in front of his mom? Hi Reddit. This happened last weekend and my fiancé is still mad at me. I, 28F, have been with my fiancé, Michael, 30M, for 3 years. We got engaged 6 months ago and are planning a wedding for next spring. Now, some important background. Michael comes from a very traditional Southern family. Think Sunday church, big family dinners, and very old school gender roles. I'm from a more progressive Northern family. Both my parents worked, chores were evenly split, and no one expected the women to serve the men. Michael and I don't follow traditional gender roles in our home. We split chores and cooking, and he's never had a problem with it. Or so I thought. So last weekend we visited his parents for his mum's birthday. Big family gathering, aunts, uncles, cousins, kids. His mum cooked a huge spread. Fried chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread, the whole Southern feast. When it was time to eat, the women were up assembling plates for everyone. Fat men, kids, elders. I stood up to help and asked Michael what he wanted. He said, "Babe, can you just fix my plate for me?" I paused, not because I didn't want to, but because something about the tone and the setting made it feel off. Like it wasn't just a request, it was an expectation. I looked around and every single man was sitting down, waiting to be served. The women were bustling around, dishing food like waitresses. I said, "You can come fix your own plate, I'm not your maid." Quiet, but firm. Michael blinked, looked shocked and said, "Come on, don't make a thing." I replied, "I'm happy to help, but you've got legs. You're just as capable." Some of his aunts looked over. One gave me a serious side-eye. His mom said, "That's not how we do things around here." I said, "Well, that might be how y'all do it, but we're not playing that game." Michael stood up and quietly said he'd get his own food, but he was visibly irritated. We ate, mostly in silence. Later in the car, he blew up. He said I disrespected him in front of his whole family, made his mum uncomfortable, and turned a small thing into a power play. I told him I'm not going to perform outdated gender roles just to please his relatives, especially when that's not even how we operate at home. He argued that I should have just gone along with it for one night, and that it was just a plate of food, not some huge feminist issue. I told him it's not about the plate and it's about what it represented, that me giving in would have made it seem like I accepted that dynamic and I don't. Now he's barely talking to me. His mum called me mouthy. His cousin DM'd me to say I emasculated Michael and that no man wants a wife who talks back. I didn't even respond. I told my mum about it and she said I probably could have just made the plate to keep the peace. But my sister said hell no, that I was right to stand my ground and that this is how these things creep in. Slowly, silently, until it becomes the new norm. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to make my fiancé a plate at his mum's dinner and embarrassing him? Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my best friend's ex attend my wedding after finding out he cheated on her? Hey Reddit, this is a messy situation that's been causing major tension, and I'm not sure if I'm the one in the wrong here. 29F, am getting married in a couple of months to my fiancé, James, 32M. We've been together for 3 years, and everything has been wonderful. We're both really excited about the wedding and everything that comes with it. One of my closest friends, Nina, 30F, is my maid of honor. We've been best friends since college, and she's been there for me through thick and thin. So naturally, I wanted her to be a huge part of my special day. But here's where things get complicated. Nina had been in a long-term relationship with her ex, Matt, 31M, for about 5 years before they broke up last year. The breakup was ugly. Nina found out that Matt had been cheating on her with a co-worker for almost a year. She was devastated, obviously, and they've had no contact since the breakup. To make things worse, Matt was not apologetic at all. He didn't try to explain himself or beg for her back. He just acted like she was the problem. It left Nina heartbroken, angry, and unwilling to even hear his name anymore. I've been supporting Nina through the whole ordeal, and while I've always made it clear that I never liked Matt, mostly because I could see how controlling and manipulative he was, I tried to stay out of it as much as possible while still being there for Nina. Fast forward to my wedding planning. Invitations went out, and I made it clear from the beginning that Matt was not invited to my wedding. I wasn't going to have him there after how badly he treated my best friend. I didn't feel comfortable with the idea of him being there, especially since Nina and I agreed he should be out of her life completely. It just felt wrong. That's when the problem arose. A few weeks ago, Nina approached me and asked if I could invite Matt to my wedding. She said she was over it, found that she was fine with him being there now that they had some distance. I was shocked. She told me she had been talking to him recently, and though their conversations were just civil, she was open to having a peaceful interaction. I didn't understand why she would want to invite him after everything he did, but she insisted it wasn't for her. It was for the sake of everyone moving on. I told her no, I wasn't comfortable with that. I told her that I couldn't invite someone who had hurt her so badly, especially since he was still acting like everything was Nina's fault. She said I was being unreasonable and holding on to grudges that weren't mine to hold, but I still said no. This caused a huge fight. Nina accused me of being unsupportive of her healing process. She said I was trying to control her by not letting her do what she needed to move forward. I told her that it wasn't about controlling her. It was about respecting our friendship and the way he treated her. I told her that I didn't want someone who treated my best friend like dirt at my wedding, and I didn't want to risk ruining the day with any unnecessary drama. Now she's been distant. She's barely speaking to me and has even gone so far as to say that if Matt isn't invited, she might not come to the wedding at all. I'm devastated because she's my maid of honor, and this is causing a serious rift in our friendship. Her parents are also siding with her, saying I should just let it go and invite Matt for her sake. My fiancé, James, supports me. He says we shouldn't have someone who hurt Nina in the past be a part of our celebration, but I'm still struggling with whether or not I'm being too harsh on Nina. I understand she wants closure, but I'm not sure a wedding is the right place for that. I'm honestly just trying to protect the special day we've been working so hard on. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to let my best friend's ex attend my wedding after finding out he cheated on her, even though she says she's over it? Am I the a-hole for breaking up with my girlfriend after finding out she was secretly texting my ex? Hey Reddit, this one's been eating at me for weeks, and I need outside opinions. I, 32M, was with my girlfriend Kate, 29F, for almost 2 years. We lived together, shared bills, adopted a dog, the whole thing. I genuinely thought she might be the one, until about a month ago, when I found out she'd been texting my ex-girlfriend behind my back. Let me explain. I dated Erin, 31F, for about 4 years before Kate. It was serious. We talked marriage, shared a lease, all that, but it ended badly. Erin cheated on me with a co-worker and tried to justify it by saying we'd grown apart. I was devastated, especially since I found out through a friend and not her. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. She just shrugged and said, "I didn't want to hurt you." We broke up and didn't speak again. Fast forward a year and I met Kate. She was fun, sweet, and totally different from Erin. I told her early on that my last relationship ended in betrayal and that I wasn't in contact with my ex and didn't want to be. Kate seemed understanding, until last month. Kate was in the shower and her phone buzzed on the counter. I wasn't snooping. I glanced over and saw a notification that said, "Erin, I really think you should tell him now before someone else does." My heart dropped. I opened the message thread. Yeah, I know, privacy and all, but come on, I had to. There were weeks of messages. Kate had reached out to Erin months ago. The conversation started casual. "I just wanted to hear your side of things" kind of messages. Then it got deeper. Kate had asked Erin what our relationship was like. Erin told her everything, details about our sex life, my insecurities, how I used to cry when I got overwhelmed, and even made fun of my therapy journey. Kate didn't defend me once. In fact, she laughed along with some of the messages. One part that really gutted me. Erin said, "Sometimes I wonder if he ever got over me." And Kate replied, "I've wondered that too." I confronted Kate that night. She didn't deny it. She said she needed to know what kind of man she was really with, and that talking to Erin gave her insight. I asked her why she never told me. She said I would have overreacted. I told her the betrayal wasn't just that she talked to Erin. It was that she let my ex mock me, shared private things, and kept it secret. She said I was blowing it out of proportion, that it was just curiosity, and she didn't mean any harm. I couldn't look at her the same after that. I packed a bag that night and stayed at a friend's place. 2 days later, I told her it was over. She begged me not to throw it all away, but I told her she already had. Now friends are divided. Some say I did the right thing, that her actions were shady and crossed major boundaries. Others say I should have forgiven the curiosity, and that she only talked to Erin because she had questions and wanted to understand me better. My own sister said I was being too harsh, that most women are curious about their partner's past. But Reddit, is curiosity a good enough excuse to betray someone's trust? So am I the a-hole for ending the relationship after finding out my girlfriend was secretly texting my ex? Am I the a-hole for confronting my wife about hiding my inheritance money from me? Hey Reddit, this is a tough one for me, and I'm really torn about whether I'm in the wrong here. I, 35ME, have been married to my wife, Sarah, 32F, for 6 years. We have 2 kids and we're generally a happy family, or so I thought. Everything went downhill when I found out that Sarah has been secretly keeping a large portion of my inheritance money from me. Here's the background. Last year, my grandmother passed away, and as her only grandson, I was named the beneficiary of her estate. It wasn't a huge fortune, about $150,000 in cash, plus a couple of small pieces of property. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was enough to give me some financial flexibility and take a little pressure off. I didn't tell Sarah right away because I wanted to talk to a financial advisor about what to do with it. I've always been responsible with money and wanted to make sure I invested it properly for our future. A few weeks after the funeral, Sarah brought up the inheritance. In passing, I told her about the money and that I was thinking about using it to put a down payment on a bigger house. She seemed excited about it, but didn't ask for specifics. I thought everything was fine. About 3 months ago, I started planning for a large home improvement project. I went to access the inheritance funds from the joint account we have, but when I logged in, I noticed the balance was off. There was significantly less money than I expected. I thought maybe I was looking at the wrong account or there was some sort of mistake, so I asked Sarah about it. She froze and tried to change the subject, but I pressed her. Eventually, she admitted that she had moved a large portion of the inheritance, money into a separate savings account, one that I didn't know about. I was shocked. She explained that she wanted to keep it safe because she was worried about us having financial problems in the future. She said, "I didn't want you to just spend it on stuff we didn't need." I was speechless. I asked her why she didn't discuss it with me first. She said she thought she was doing the right thing by protecting the money for the family. But here's the kicker. She's been secretly transferring money from that account into her own personal account for the last few months without telling me. She justified it by saying she was trying to save for emergencies. But when I asked her how much she'd taken, she just said, "I'm not keeping it for myself. It's just in case something happens and I can't ask you for money." But that didn't sit right with me. I feel completely betrayed. I've always been open about our finances, and while we've had joint accounts, I never expected her to hide money from me like this, especially money that was supposed to be for our family's future. We've always discussed big purchases and investments, so the fact that she took that decision out of my hands without even consulting me feels like a huge violation of trust. When I confronted her about it, she got defensive. She accused me of overreacting and said I was just being paranoid because I was worried about the money. She argued that she's always looked out for our future and that she's just being cautious. But it didn't feel like caution. It felt like she was trying to control something that should have been ours. She says I'm blowing this out of proportion, but I can't help but feel like this was a huge breach of trust. The inheritance was my money, and I feel like she had no right to hide it or take it without my consent. When I asked for an explanation about why she'd secretly transferred so much into her personal account, she just brushed it off and said, "It was no big deal. Our marriage has always been solid, but now I'm second-guessing everything. I'm questioning whether we really have the same values when it comes to trust, finances, and communication. We're supposed to be partners, so why didn't she see this as something we needed to decide together? Now I'm wondering, am I the a-hole for confronting Sarah about this? Or am I overreacting? Should I have just let it slide and trusted that she had good intentions? Am I the a-hole for being upset that my fiancé is secretly texting his ex, and should I confront him? Hey Reddit, I need some perspective on this situation. I, 28F, have been with my fiancé Tom, 30M, for 2 years, and we've been engaged for 6 months. Our relationship has been mostly great, and we've never had any serious issues until recently. Here's the thing. A few weeks ago, I stumbled upon something that's been bothering me ever since. We've been living together for almost a year, and I've always had access to his phone if I needed it, whether it was to check the weather, look up something on Google, or show him a photo. We've never had any issues with privacy. We both share our passwords and are usually pretty open with each other. It's never been an issue until this one moment. A few weeks ago, I was charging my phone in the living room and Tom's phone was on the counter next to mine. It lit up with a message from someone named Sarah. I didn't think anything of it at first, but I noticed that the conversation seemed a little too friendly, almost flirtatious. It immediately made me uncomfortable, especially when I saw that the messages were from an ex-girlfriend of his, a woman he had dated long before we met. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I couldn't help but read through a few more of the messages. It wasn't anything explicit, but the tone of the conversation definitely felt inappropriate. They were making small talk, but then there was talk about remembering good times, and a comment from Tom about how he still thinks about her sometimes. I felt sick to my stomach reading it. Why was he still in touch with her? Why was he reminiscing about their past when we were supposed to be building a future together? I took a deep breath and decided to not confront him immediately. I didn't want to cause a scene or look like I was snooping, even though I totally was, I guess. I sat on it for a few days, trying to figure out if I was just overreacting. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Why was he still talking to his ex? Why was he hiding it from me? I had never gotten a vibe that he was still emotionally attached to her, or so I thought. A few days ago, I finally decided to bring it up. I asked him casually, "Hey, I noticed you've been texting Sarah a lot lately. What's that about?" He immediately got defensive and asked what I was talking about. I told him I had seen the messages and that I felt uncomfortable with the fact that he was still in touch with her. He said it was no big deal and that they were just catching up because they hadn't spoken in years. He assured me there was nothing going on and that I had no reason to be concerned, but that's when I got even more upset. The fact that he tried to brush it off like it was nothing made me feel like he wasn't taking my feelings seriously. He said that I shouldn't be snooping and that I was overthinking the situation. He also told me that it wasn't like he was talking to her about personal things or that they were planning to meet up. But I was still bothered by the fact that he'd been texting her behind my back and didn't tell me about it. Why keep it a secret? Now I'm feeling conflicted. I don't know if I'm just being paranoid and possessive or if he's really doing something wrong. I've never felt this uncomfortable about his past relationships before, and I don't know if I should just trust him and let it go, or if I should keep pushing him to explain his actions further. I'm really struggling because I've always prided myself on being open-minded and trusting in relationships, but I can't shake the feeling that he's hiding something from me. It's not just about the texting. It's the fact that he felt the need to hide it from me in the first place. I've never given him a reason to feel like he had to hide things. I feel like I'm stuck between wanting to trust him and being deeply hurt by the fact that he's still emotionally connected to someone else. It's like I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for being upset about him texting his ex, and should I confront him more about it? I don't want to push him away, but I also don't want to ignore my gut feeling. Am I the a-hole for uninviting my sister's fiancé from my wedding after finding out he cheated, even though she forgave him? Hey Reddit, this is a mess. And now my whole family is involved. I, 29 am getting married this summer to my fiancée, Emily, 27F. We've been together for 5 years and planning the wedding for about a year now. Everything was going smoothly until about a month ago when I found out something that completely changed how I saw someone very close to me. My younger sister, Ava, 26F, has been with her fiancé, Tyler, 28M, for 3 years. They got engaged last year, and honestly none of us were super excited about it. Tyler's always been a bit smug and condescending. He has this way of making people feel small while acting like he's just joking. But Ava seemed happy, so we let it go. Until recently, I was out with a couple of co-workers getting drinks, and one of my co-workers, Sasha, pulled me aside and asked if I had a sister named Ava. I said yeah. Sasha hesitated and then said, I wasn't sure if I should tell you this, but I figured you'd want to know. Her fiancé, Tyler, he hit on me, like full on, trying to get me to come to his place after a conference mixer 2 months. Hago. I was stunned. She showed me the messages. Tyler had been incredibly flirty and suggestive, then downright explicit. When she asked if he had a girlfriend, he said, it's complicated. This was after they were engaged. I didn't say anything at first. I wanted to talk to Ava privately, so I invited her to lunch the next weekend and gently told her what I'd learned. She didn't even look surprised. That's when she told me she already knew. Apparently, a few months back, she had gone through Tyler's phone and found similar messages to at least 2 other women. She confronted him. He admitted to emotional lapses, promised it never got physical, cried, begged, and said it was a mistake. Ava decided to forgive him. I asked her if she really believed it was only emotional. She shrugged and said, I want to believe him. I'm choosing to move forward. I told her I respected her decision, but I couldn't pretend like everything was fine, especially at my wedding. Tyler had openly disrespected her and showed what kind of person he is. So after talking it over with Emily, I called Ava a few days later and told her that Tyler was no longer invited to our wedding. She could still come, of course, but not him. She went silent, then said, if he's not invited, I'm not coming either. I said, that's your choice, but I won't have someone like him celebrating our marriage when he can't even respect his own. Cue nuclear fallout. My mom called me furious. She said I had no right to make that decision and that I was tearing the family apart. My dad said he understood where I was coming from, but maybe I should have just kept the peace. Even a couple of cousins texted me saying I was being judgmental. Ava hasn't spoken to me since. She posted something passive-aggressive on Facebook like, funny how the people preaching loyalty are the first to turn their backs. Emily supports my decision 100%. She said it's our day and we don't need toxic energy around us. But part of me wonders if I did overstep. Ava forgave him. Who am I to decide what she should accept in her relationship? But another part of me feels like enabling someone like Tyler just sends the message that actions have no consequences. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for uninviting my sister's fiancé from our wedding, even though she forgave him? Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay off my fiancé's credit card debt after he hid it from me? Hey Reddit, I need help navigating a tricky situation with my fiancé, and I'm really not sure if I'm in the wrong here. I, 27F, have been dating my fiancé Jacob at 29 Mementos for over 3 years, and we got engaged about 6 months ago. Things have been mostly great, but lately I've found myself feeling increasingly frustrated with him, and I'm not sure if I'm just being too hard on him or if I have a right to feel upset. Here's the backstory. We've always had a pretty open relationship when it comes to finances. We share a joint bank account for shared expenses like rent, utilities and groceries, but we also each have our own individual accounts for personal spending. We've talked about our finances a lot, and I've always made it clear that I expect transparency when it comes to money, especially since we're planning a wedding and merging our lives together. A few months ago, I started noticing that Jacob's spending habits were getting a little out of control. He was buying a lot of things, gadgets, clothes, expensive meals out with friends, and I thought it was a little strange, since he'd always been pretty responsible about money before. I asked him about it, and he assured me that everything was fine. He said he was just treating himself after a tough year and that he was within budget. Then last week I was doing some paperwork and came across a bill that had his name on it, a credit card bill that was way higher than it should have been. I had never seen this particular credit card before, and when I checked the balance I realized he had over $10,000 in credit card debt. Naturally, I was shocked and upset. We had discussed our finances multiple times, and he had never mentioned this debt. He had always portrayed himself as financially stable, and we'd even talked about how we wanted to handle our finances after marriage. This debt was a huge red flag, and I felt completely blindsided. I confronted Jacob about it, and he immediately got defensive. He said he didn't want to worry me with it because he thought he could pay it off himself. He apologized for hiding it from me, but said he didn't want to burden me with it. He insisted that he'd been paying it down for a while, but the payments were just slow because of his other expenses. I told him that I wasn't angry because of the debt itself. I was angry because he had kept it a secret from me. We've always talked about being open, and I felt like he'd been hiding something major from me that could affect both of us once we get married. I told him I didn't think I could marry someone who wasn't transparent with me about something so important. He asked me to help him pay off the debt, and that's where I drew the line. I told him that I wasn't comfortable using our shared finances to pay off his credit card bills. I didn't mind supporting him emotionally or helping him with a plan to pay it off, but I wasn't going to just throw money at it. I also told him that I didn't think it was fair for me to take on this responsibility when he had hidden it from me for so long. Jacob was furious. He said that I was being unsupportive and that I should want to help him, especially since we're about to get married and our finances would be joined. He said that it wasn't like he had been irresponsible with the debt. It had just piled up slowly over time. He accused me of judging him and making him feel like he wasn't good enough to be with me because of his financial mistakes. I understand that no one is perfect, and I'm not trying to make him feel bad about it. But I also think it's not just about the money. It's about the fact that he's been dishonest with me. I feel like he should have come to me earlier and been upfront about it. It's a huge red flag to me that he didn't think it was important enough to mention. I'm also worried that his lack of transparency will affect us in the future, especially if we're going to be financially connected. He's been sulking ever since, and it's creating a lot of tension between us. He's constantly texting me asking for reassurance that I still love him, but he hasn't really apologized for hiding the debt in the first place. My friends are split. Some say I'm right to be upset and shouldn't just pay off his debt, while others say I should support him and help him pay it off to avoid tension in the relationship. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to pay off my fiancé's credit card debt after he hid it from me? Am I being too harsh, or is it reasonable to expect him to be more upfront about this before we get married? Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my best friend's boyfriend be our wedding photographer after finding out he's been cheating on her? Hey Reddit, I'm in a bit of a tough spot, and I'm not sure if I'm being unreasonable here, so I could really use some outside perspective. I, 28F, am getting married to my fiancé, Ben, 30 Manmays, in a few months. We've been together for almost 5 years, and everything has been going smoothly until recently. I've been friends with my best friend Hannah, 27F, for almost a decade, and she's been there for me through everything. We've been through breakups, weddings, job changes, everything. She's one of the most important people in my life, and I trust her completely. The issue started when we were discussing the wedding details a few months ago, and I mentioned that we needed to start looking for a photographer. Hannah immediately offered her boyfriend, Charlie, 28 Mem, as a suggestion. Charlie is a pretty well-known photographer in our city, and while I'd never worked with him personally, I had seen his work, and it seemed fine. Hannah was really enthusiastic about the idea and said that he'd love to shoot our wedding for a discounted rate, which I thought was great. I was hesitant at first because I wasn't sure about mixing business with personal relationships, but I trusted Hannah and thought it would be a great way to save some money. She promised that everything would be handled professionally, and since we were already friends, I figured it would make the whole process easier. However, things took a sharp turn when I found out that Charlie had been cheating on Hannah for months. I didn't hear it from her directly. Instead, one of our other friends casually mentioned it during a group chat. Apparently, Charlie had been secretly seeing another woman, and he'd been lying to Hannah about it. To make things worse, he'd been doing it while Hannah was out of town for work. I was absolutely stunned, and when I confronted her about it, she confirmed everything. Hannah was completely heartbroken. She didn't want to admit it at first, but eventually she broke down and confessed that she'd found out about Charlie's infidelity and had confronted him. They had been arguing non-stop for days, but despite everything, she said she wasn't ready to break up with him because she still loved him. Naturally, I was furious. I've never been a fan of cheaters, and I felt like Charlie had completely betrayed Hannah. I tried to support her through this, but I also felt really uncomfortable about the idea of having him as our wedding photographer. I told Ben what happened, and he immediately agreed that we shouldn't have someone who treated our friend so poorly as part of such a significant event. I didn't want to have to pretend everything was okay with Charlie when it clearly wasn't. So I went to Hannah and told her that I didn't feel comfortable having Charlie shoot our wedding anymore. I told her that I loved her and understood that she was going through a difficult time, but I couldn't justify having someone who had hurt her so much be involved in our special day. I asked if we could find another photographer, or if she wanted, we could still include Charlie in other ways, but I couldn't have him behind the lens. Hannah was devastated. She said she understood my reasoning, but that I was disrespecting her relationship with Charlie and causing unnecessary tension. She said I was being too harsh on him because they were still working through their issues and that I should support her decision. She also accused me of making the situation about myself and not considering her feelings enough. I tried to explain that I wasn't doing this to hurt her, but I felt like I couldn't have someone who had caused so much pain to my best friend be a part of the wedding. It just didn't sit right with me. But she's now told me that if Charlie isn't the photographer, she might not come to the wedding at all. She said she couldn't attend a wedding where I disrespected her. Relationship like that. This has turned into a huge mess. I've been going back and forth with Ben about it, and he feels the same way I do, that Charlie should not be involved with our wedding in any capacity. But now, I feel like I'm being forced to choose between my best friend and my wedding. I don't want to lose her, but I also don't want to compromise on what I believe is right. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to let my best friend's boyfriend be our wedding photographer after finding out he's been cheating on her? Am I being unreasonable? Or is this just something that I can't overlook? Am I the a-hole for being upset that my fiancé has been hiding his true career ambitions and wants to quit his job after our wedding? Hey Reddit, I need some serious advice because I'm at a crossroads and I don't know how to handle this situation with my fiancé. I, 29F, am engaged to my fiancé Adam, 32, and we've been together for 4 years. We got engaged a few months ago and everything seemed to be going great. But recently, I found myself questioning things, and it's making me feel like I might be in the wrong, so I really need some outside opinions on this. Here's the situation. Over the last few months, Adam has been acting a little distant. At first, I thought it was just pre-wedding stress or maybe a result of the busy life we've been leading, but then I started noticing something odd. We've always had regular conversations about our future, especially regarding finances and career goals. Adam has a decent job in a stable industry. Nothing fancy, but it pays the bills, and we've been able to build a comfortable life. It's been clear from the start that he doesn't love his job, but he's always said he wants to stick with it because it's secure and provides stability for our future. A few weeks ago, we were talking about our post-wedding plans, and Adam dropped a bombshell. He told me that he planned to quit his job after the wedding and pursue something completely different. This was the first I'd ever heard about him wanting to make a career change, and when I asked him why he hadn't told me about this sooner, he just said he didn't want to worry me. Apparently, he had been planning it for a while and had already started making some moves to transition into this new career. At first, I was genuinely happy for him. I know it's important to follow your passions, and I'd always supported him in his pursuit of happiness. But when I asked what this new career would mean financially, I didn't get the answer I was expecting. Adam explained that this new career was something he was passionate about, but it didn't have the same financial security as his current job. In fact, he admitted that he didn't know exactly how much he would be making at first, and that it could take a while for him to build up enough clients or a steady income. I was shocked. We've always been practical about money, especially since we've been planning a wedding and preparing to start a life together. The financial stability of his current job was one of the main reasons we've been able to save up for the wedding, buy a house, and plan for the future. Now, he was telling me that he wanted to leave all that behind without having a clear backup plan. I asked him why he hadn't told me about this sooner and why he'd kept it from me until now. He said he didn't want to burden me with the stress of it and that he wanted to surprise me after the wedding. I was furious. How could he think it was okay to make such a huge decision without discussing it with me first? It's not just about the career change. It's the fact that he had kept this a secret for so long, and now it felt like I was being blindsided by a major life decision that directly impacts our future. I told him I felt betrayed and that this wasn't something he should have kept from me. I also expressed my concern about the financial implications of this change, especially right after we get married. He was upset with me for not being more supportive, saying that this was his dream and he needed to follow it for his own happiness. But I felt like he was being selfish by not considering how this decision would affect both of us. We've spent years building a life that relies on financial security, and now it feels like everything we've worked for could be jeopardized, because he suddenly wants to change careers without any real plan in place. I told him that I would support him in pursuing his dreams, but I couldn't support him if it meant putting our future and financial stability at risk. He got defensive and said I was being unsupportive and that I was too focused on money. He said that if I truly loved him, I should want him to be happy, even if it meant taking risks. He also mentioned that I was making it about me and our wedding, instead of celebrating his decision to follow his passion. Now I feel like we're at an impasse. I want to support him in chasing his dreams, but I'm also scared that this could create huge financial instability for us, especially as we're about to start our married life together. We've never had a conversation about this before, and now it feels like I'm expected to just be okay with him making this decision without any real backup plan. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for being upset that my fiancé has been hiding his true career ambitions and is planning to quit his job after the wedding? Am I being too focused on finances and stability, or should he have told me about this sooner and discussed it with me? Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my sister live in our family home after our parents passed away? Hey Reddit, I've been going back and forth about this situation, and I need some outside opinions because I feel like I might be making the wrong call here. I-31F. Lost both of my parents to a car accident about 8 months ago. It was devastating, as you can imagine, and since then it's been a rough time for me and my family. I have one sister, Lucy, 28F, and we've always had a complicated relationship. We've never been super close, but we've always gotten along. That is, until recently. Before our parents passed away, they had made it clear in their will that the family home would be left to me, as I was the one who had always been the most responsible and invested in taking care of them in their old age. My parents trusted me to handle their estate, and they had expressed that they didn't want the house to go to anyone else. There were no conditions attached to the will. It was a straightforward inheritance. When our parents died, I was in charge of the funeral arrangements, and I started the process of cleaning out the house. My sister was not happy with the will, to put it mildly. She felt that it was unfair and that she deserved the house too, especially since she had moved out years ago and had started her own life in another city. She argued that the house had sentimental value to her as well, and she wanted to keep it in the family. I understand that she might feel attached to the house, but the reality is that it was always my responsibility. I've spent years caring for our parents and making sure everything was in order for them. It wasn't her who took care of the financial side of things, or who spent countless hours looking after them when their health started to decline. I understand that losing our parents was hard for her, but this was a decision my parents had made, and I didn't feel it was fair to just give it to her because of her emotions. After I started the process of putting the house on the market, Lucy made it clear that she was not okay with it. She began showing up at the house unannounced, going through things, and even tried to convince me that I should let her stay there until she could find somewhere else to live. She told me she wasn't ready to move on from the house and that it was where she felt closest to our parents. She made it sound like I was being selfish for not allowing her to stay in the house for a little while, even though I had already planned to sell it. I refused. I told her that the house was mine to decide what to do with, and that she wasn't entitled to live there. I also reminded her that my parents made it clear that it was my responsibility to manage their estate, and I had already made plans to sell the house, which would help me secure my own financial future after their passing. This did not go over well. Lucy accused me of being heartless and said that I was throwing her out without any regard for her emotional well-being. She said I was using my position as the executor of the will to take everything from her, and that I was being cruel to her during a time of loss. She even said that she couldn't understand how I could just sell the house, knowing how much it meant to her. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to hurt her, but that I had my own reasons for wanting to sell the house. The house is a lot of work to maintain, and I didn't want to be saddled with it. Plus, I didn't feel any connection to it anymore after losing our parents. But Lucy kept insisting that I was being unreasonable and that I should put family first and let her stay there. The situation came to a head when she sent me a formal letter demanding that I allow her to move in until she found a new place. She threatened to take legal action if I didn't comply. I was stunned. I've always tried to be supportive of Lucy, but this felt like an unreasonable demand. She had her own life and own place, and I didn't think it was right for her to try to force me into this situation. I'm starting to feel guilty about my decision, though. I know it's difficult for Lucy, and I feel like I'm being too harsh on her. On the other hand, I feel like she's not respecting the fact that my parents wanted me to have the house, and I've tried to be as fair as possible in the circumstances. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my sister live in our family home after our parents passed away? Should I be more empathetic to her feelings, or is she overstepping her boundaries by trying to force me to let her stay? Am I the a-hole for uninviting my best friend from my wedding after she stole the spotlight at my engagement party? Hey Reddit, I've been struggling with this situation for a while, and I could really use some objective opinions because I'm honestly feeling torn. I, 29F, am engaged to my fiancé Mark on 31M, and we've been together for almost 3 years. Things have been great between us, and we were super excited to start planning our wedding. A few weeks ago, we had our engagement party, and everything was going smoothly, until it wasn't. My best friend Rachel, 30F, has always been a huge part of my life. We've been best friends for over 15 years, and I thought I could trust her with anything. She's been there for me through thick and thin, and I always assumed she'd be by my side during the wedding planning process. However, her behavior during the engagement party has completely changed my perspective on our friendship. So at the engagement party, I had invited all of our close friends and family to celebrate. It was a casual event, nothing too fancy, just a nice evening with everyone who's important to us. We had some drinks, shared stories, and enjoyed the night. However, midway through the party, things started to take a turn. Rachel began making a huge spectacle of herself. First, she took the microphone during a toast and started talking about how happy she was for us, but then she kept going. She went on and on about how she was the one who helped me find Mark, which wasn't even true. We met through mutual friends, and how she had always known we were meant to be together. It was sweet at first, but she just wouldn't stop. Then, as people were trying to move on from the toast, she started making unsolicited comments about the wedding. She was loudly critiquing the colors we had chosen for the wedding theme, saying they were too basic and boring, and that I should go with something more original. It made me uncomfortable, but I tried to brush it off, hoping she would calm down, but she didn't. Throughout the night, she kept taking the spotlight from me. She kept bringing up how when she gets married, she'd do things completely differently. She made jokes about how I probably wouldn't be able to handle the stress of wedding planning, and even insinuated that I might get cold feet. At one point, she took it too far and asked Mark if he was sure he was making the right decision because maybe he was settling. I was horrified. This was supposed to be my night, my time to celebrate my engagement. And Rachel was acting like it was all about her. To make matters worse, at the end of the night, she pulled me aside and said that she expected to be the maid of honor, since she was the most important woman in my life. While I love Rachel and she has been an amazing friend to me, this felt way out of line. We had never discussed wedding roles, but I was planning on having my cousin as maid of honor. I didn't think it would be an issue, but Rachel immediately started throwing a fit, saying I was disrespecting our friendship by not making her the maid of honor. She accused me of changing and said that I was letting Mark's family influence me. I told her I was already set on my decision, but she was livid. The next day I started reflecting on everything that had happened, and I realized just how disrespectful and hurtful Rachel's behavior had been. She had ruined my engagement party by making it all about her, constantly belittling my choices and overstepping boundaries. I felt like she had no respect for my relationship or the special day that was supposed to be about me and Mark. I confronted her about her behavior and told her I didn't appreciate how she had acted. I said that I couldn't have her continue to treat me this way, and I wasn't comfortable with her being involved in the wedding anymore. I uninvited her from the wedding entirely. I explained that if she couldn't respect my decisions and my boundaries, I couldn't allow her to be part of this big event in my life. Rachel was devastated. She started crying, calling me selfish, and saying that I was making a huge mistake. She told me I was throwing away our friendship over something so trivial. She even accused me of being controlling and said that I was turning into a bridezilla. She said that I was ruining our friendship for a man and that I was being unreasonable for not letting her have a bigger role in the wedding. Our other friends have been split. Some think I did the right thing by standing up for myself, while others think I overreacted and should have just let Rachel be involved. But I can't shake the feeling that what she did was really manipulative, and I don't want that kind of energy around my wedding. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for uninviting my best friend from my wedding after she stole the spotlight at my engagement party? Should I have tried to talk it out more, or was I right to cut ties over this? Am I the a-hole for staying with my boyfriend after I found out he cheated on me? Hi Reddit, I need some outside opinions because I'm torn between what I know is right and what my heart is telling me. I, 27F, have been with my boyfriend Josh, 30M, for almost 3 years. We met in college, and our relationship has always been really solid. We've had our ups and downs, but overall, we've built a life together that I'm really proud of. We've even talked about getting married and starting a family in the near future. However, a few weeks ago I discovered something that completely shattered my world. I was at his apartment one night when I noticed his phone was buzzing non-stop on the counter. He's usually very private about his phone, but for some reason that night I felt a strange sense of curiosity. I know it was wrong, but I decided to check it. To my surprise, there were multiple messages from a woman named Samantha, all of which were flirty, sexual, and very intimate in nature. The messages weren't vague either. It was clear that they had been seeing each other for months. I confronted him immediately. He denied it at first, but the more I pressed him, the more he admitted. He told me that it had been going on for about 6 months and that he had met her at a work event. He claimed that it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything, and that he regretted it. He said he was sorry and didn't want to lose me. At first I was devastated. I couldn't believe it. Josh has always been such a kind, reliable, and loving partner. He's the last person I would have ever imagined cheating on me. The betrayal hit me so hard because we've always had such a close and trusting relationship. I thought we were happy, and I couldn't understand how he could do this to me. But after a few days of crying, thinking and talking things through, with a few close friends, I've started to feel conflicted about what to do. Some of my friends are telling me I should break up with him immediately and never look back, while others think I should give him a chance to prove that he's sorry and work through it. I've never been in this kind of situation before, so I really don't know what the right move is. I ended up asking Josh if he wanted to continue our relationship, and he swore that he would do anything to regain my trust and that he had learned from his mistake. He suggested couples therapy and promised to cut off all contact with Samantha. I really want to believe that he's genuinely sorry and that we can get past this, but I keep replaying the messages in my head. I can't shake the feeling that he knew what he was doing and that he betrayed me for months, all while pretending everything was fine between us. I've also found myself wondering, if I choose to stay with him, how will I ever fully trust him again? What if it happens again? I love him deeply, and I want to believe in his apology, but I'm scared that I'll always feel insecure or like the other woman is lurking in the background. On the other hand, I feel like I've invested so much into this relationship, and the thought of walking away from everything we've built makes me feel guilty and uncertain. I've always believed in giving second chances, but should I in this situation? Am I just setting myself up for more heartbreak by staying with him? I feel like no matter what I choose, someone's going to get hurt, either me by staying or him if I leave. I'm just so torn. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for staying with my boyfriend after I found out he cheated on me? Should I trust him when he says he's sorry, or am I just fooling myself into thinking things can go back to normal?